Today's episode is brought to you from The Russell, a historic East Nashville church transformed into a one-of-a-kind boutique hotel. The Russell's mission is to give back to the Nashville community through their Rooms for Rooms program by donating a portion of your stay to local organizations who provide a safe haven for those in need in the Nashville community. I mean, seriously, what more can you want? This hotel is beautiful and they give back. Come on. Visit the Russell Nashville to book your experience today. That's RUSSELL Nashville.com to book your experience today. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Hits Different, hosted by yours truly. I am Riley Nelson. You guys, it is almost Valentine's Day. Love is in the air, or maybe it's not for you. It's not for me, so I don't know. It's another Valentine's Day where I get to spend it all by my lonesome. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. I will get to spend this Valentine's Day with my best friends. I'm going to be doing a Galentine's Day party, and me and my girlfriends, we're all going to come over. We're going to drink some wine. We're all going to cook a nice dinner together, and we're going to enjoy being single and not having to deal with a man, period. That's a little dramatic, though. If I could have a man, I would. But you know what? I don't, and here we are. It's really not the end of the world. Being single for Valentine's Day. I've done it now for 22 years, so it's fun. It's exciting. It's fine. Let's get into it. I want to talk about Valentine's Day. I want to talk about, different kinds of relationships for Valentine's Day, because I feel like it gets really sticky. So let's talk about that. So Valentine's Day is a Hallmark holiday, if you will. It's something that doesn't really matter. It's just a way for companies to push chocolate and flowers and cards. But you know what? It's still fun to celebrate. Cupid is out to play. Sounds like a penis. Ew. Anyways, I think it can be kind of tricky whenever you are in a situationship when it comes to Valentine's Day, because do you spend it together? Do you not? What is the protocol? And honestly, I don't really think that you owe anyone anything for Valentine's Day ever. I mean, if you're in a relationship, typically people are like, yeah, no, thank you. I don't want to do gifts this year. But I feel like Valentine's Day is really for new couples. You know what I mean? It's like the Super Bowl, but for brand new couples. And what you do is you go to a dinner that is way too crowded, way too expensive, and it's just too much. And it's just not that great. And honestly, here's the thing. If you're not in a committed relationship with someone, don't get them a gift for Valentine's Day. It's not worth it. It's not going to happen. If you're in a situationship, do not get a gift. Do none of that. Your gift is yourself. You are the gift. The gift is you, period. I don't know. I just feel like Valentine's Day can be so overrated. But there's always a lot of pressure every year for it. So I don't know. I think that I will be spending my Valentine's Day with a bunch of my girlfriends, just hanging out, catching up. Yeah, not really doing too much this year. Yeah, that's all I really had to talk about today. Different kinds of relationships, different kinds of ways to celebrate. Honestly, I feel like Valentine's Day is just what it is. I think it's nice to text someone and have a Valentine, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. So if you feel down about it today, don't. And just know that there's a bunch of other single people and a bunch of other people who are miserable too. So we're doing great. All right. Anyways, I am recording today with a amazing guest. Her name is Dr. Kris Marsh. She received her PhD from Southern California in 2005. And she is a sociologist. Her general area of expertise is the Black middle class. And she looks at racial, residential segregation, and education. She has combined these interests to develop a research agenda that is divided into two broad areas: avenues into the Black middle class and consequences of being in the Black middle class. Currently, Dr. Marsh has a book forthcoming with the Cambridge University Press that examines the mental and physical health, wealth, residential choices, and dating practices of emerging Black middle class that is single and living alone. As of February 9th, Dr. Kris Marsh's book is out. You can find it on Amazon. It'll also be linked in the show notes as well. Her book is called The Love Jones Cohort, Single and Living Alone in the Black Middle Class. And I just thought that this would be a good episode to do, focusing on singleness, because, it's Valentine's Day and a lot of us are going to be single. And I just wanted to learn how to be okay with being single in, your time of singleness. And also, I thought with it being Black History Month, it would be good just to talk about Black singleness, Black love, all of the things. And I think that this can apply to a lot of people. I'm just really excited to get to talk with Dr. Kris Marsh today about being single and how to be okay being single. So, without any further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Kris Marsh. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, the moment that we have all been waiting for. I am joined today with Dr. Kris Marsh. Hi.
Hello there. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time and, coming on my show.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
So let's just dive right into it. Tell us about yourself, why you chose to get into this topic. Kind of just give us your quick little, like, this is me.
Okay, so born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Then I did my PhD at the University of Southern California, went to UNC Chapel Hill and did a postdoc there, and have been a faculty member at the University of Maryland since '08. I was tenured in 2014, so now I can just do all the fun stuff that I want to do. But when I was in graduate school, I was really interested in understanding like where the Black middle class live. I'm fascinated with segregation patterns, but I was trained as a sociologist and a demographer in graduate school. And so I wanted to know where the Black middle class lived, but I also was looking at the social science literature and the demography literature, and I realized there was a rise of people that were single. And so I really wanted to know like where single people lived. And so I did wrote my whole dissertation about that. But then once I became like a professor, I really wanted to delve deeper into this whole notion of like singlehood. So I have my book that's coming out or should be out by now, and it's called The Love Jones Cohort, Single and Living Alone in the Black Middle Class. So I really wanted to try to figure out how to destigmatize singlehood. And I want to go on record out the gate saying I am all for marriage. I'm all for love. I'm all for Black love. I think it's a beautiful thing if it's done right. I'd much rather you be happy, whole, and healthy in your singlehood than to be in a relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship, especially if that relationship is oppressive, it's unfulfilling, and it's toxic. I'd much rather you be single than be in a relationship. But so often people are so emphatic about moving out of the singlehood category that they just take subpar relationships simply to say if they're in a relationship. So the book really tries to push back against that destigmatization that happens among singles, and then really just try to talk about how singles are navigating their single life. We don't talk enough about what singles are doing. We talk a lot about like why they aren't married, but let's talk a little bit more about some of the things they are doing and try to understand their lifestyle. And that's what the book tries to do.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I found you, let me get it pulled up before. I always do this where I'm like talking and then I start talking slower because I'm pulling something up. And I'm just going to pull it up so I don't have to talk
Okay.
slow and it doesn't sound weird.
Okay.
But yes, I found you on Psychology Today. Dr. Greg Matos, I think that's how you say his name, referenced you in one of his articles. And I've been a fan of his work when it comes to just singleness. He studies single men.
Yes.
And I saw he had an article called How Lonely Single Men Can Redefine Love. And he talked a lot about you and your studies. I guess first off, do you know him or did y'all just
No, so I think he had published something in Psychology Today, and someone sent it to me, and I emailed him, and then we had talked on the phone. It was only supposed to be a 30-minute Zoom call, and it ended up being like an hour long. So like, okay, next
mm-hmm.
time let's just schedule an hour, and then I did a podcast or something for him. So I'm next when I'm in LA, I'm going to definitely look him up so that we can connect and have coffee.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
But I just loved like your positive spin
Mhm.
on it. And I feel like that's what really drew me to you. Especially when it comes to like single black middle class. With that and with your positive spin, how can we become okay with our times of singleness?
That's a really great question. And I think it's going to take a little bit of effort because most social institutions in America, that's kind of the context that I know best, we really cater to a partnered or married market. But
Hmm.
when books like this come out and we talk about singles and we don't talk about it from the deficit model, like why aren't you getting married? Why don't you have children? But talk about it more so from the perspective of what is the lifestyle? I think that starts to change the narrative, but that's not going to happen overnight. One of the things that I say in the book, and I stand by this, and I say this in the afterword of the book, and I said, at for readers, after you read this book, I hope you're just as likely to ask somebody why are they married as you are to ask somebody why are you single. We often ask single folks why are you single, but we never ever ask married folks why they're married and wait for a coherent response. The reason why I think that that's a huge problem is because it almost superimposes a deficit model on singles. You could have all these accolades and everything, but if you're not partnered or married, we have questions. But we don't make those same questions to married folks and ask them, why are you married? And wait for a coherent answer. Like, oh, I love them. Okay, I'm gonna need you to give me a little more coherency with that. So I think we need to move past this notion that partnering is like the only way and being married is the only way to be live happy, healthy, full, whole lives. And unfortunately, everything is like caters to like the married market and being married.
Yeah, no, I definitely like experience that even with myself because I'm single. And, sometimes my friends joke, they're like, why do you have a dating podcast when you're not in a relationship? And I'm like, just because I'm not in a relationship doesn't mean that I'm not doing the work and preparing myself to be in a relationship.
Right.
Also, that's not the end all be all, but society tells us it is.
Right. And it's so funny how like marriage is like the panacea for like all these ills. If you just get married, all of your ills are going to go away. That's not how that works. And I have a friend who recently got married. He's like, well, I'm lonely, so I'm going to get married. I was like, so you're lonely and don't want to be in the house by yourself. So you're going to get married. If you can't stomach yourself, why do you think somebody else can stomach you?
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
But
And
we don't do a lot of time I apologize. We don't
no,
do a
no,
lot of
you
time
go.
like we don't do a lot we don't take a lot of time to do like our self-care and do like our own individual work on ourselves. There's some emotional work that we have to do as individuals. And I think being in your singleness, embracing that, standing in that, being confident in that can make for a very healthy, happy, whole person. And then you can think about relationships. But some people are fractured and like, well, let me just get into a relationship so that I can make it happen. And I think that that's really dangerous because I am of the mindset, and people can argue me down if they want to. If you get into a relationship out of a need, I am of the mindset that needs have an expiration date. I need somebody because I'm lonely. But once
Yes.
needs have an expiration date, you want to be in a relationship. I can see that because you'll always. I think with the want, you'll always work at it. But if the need, a need has an expiration date, then you're stuck in a relationship with someone that you no longer need. What are you going to do with them? And so we spend so much time trying to cater to and trying to find relationships. We don't spend enough time with our individual selves, working on ourselves, nor do we spend enough time really cultivating our non romantic relationships too. We put all of our eggs in the romantic relationship and don't spend enough time thinking about, our friends and our very close family members that are essentially like intimate relationships, but we don't put the effort and energy into those. We underestimate those and overestimate romantic relationships. So yes, you should absolutely have your podcast single because you may not be in a romantic relationship, but I'm pretty sure you have a lot of intimate relationships.
Yeah, no, I would completely say the same. And I was listening to a podcast about this today, actually, just about love and about in our society, it's all about romantic love. But we don't ever stop and think about like all the other kinds of love that there is and how we only focus on the romantic, but like I think about some of the hardest times that I've gone through personally, and no one romantic was around loving me and loving on me and supporting me. It was my friends, it was my family. And we don't give that kind of love enough credit because society tells us that all we need is romantic love and then we'll be full.
Right. Right. And it's so funny because one of my dearest girlfriends, she had a breakup. And so we were like all hands on deck. We're like, say less. We went and got her favorite ice cream. We got her favorite food. We got tissues. We all jumped in the bed with her and we cried with her because that's what you do with your
Mm-hmm.
friends. And we just don't put enough emphasis and value on those. One of the things that I talk about in the book, and I think is really essential and kind of dovetails with some of the conversation that Dr. Mathos is having. Black women in particular, especially in the book, they really talked about being single. An essential part of them being single were their girlfriends and their non-romantic relationships with their sister girls and their girlfriends, and how that really helped them solidify, embrace, and celebrate their singlehood and their single lifestyles. A lot of the men didn't, because those are like non-romantic nurturing relationships. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the men in the cohort didn't have those same non-romantic nurturing relationships. And it dovetails with some of the work by Robert Staples, who did a book on Black singles years ago. One of the arguments he made, and I also kind of found this in the book, is that men tend to have friends for utility purposes, to move a couch, to play a football game with, but not to have like non-romantic, intimate relationships with, because
Yeah,
they're afraid
definitely.
of because they're afraid of being soft, the stereotype of like, oh, you must be
Mhm.
gay. And so I do hope that after reading the book and having spent some time with the narratives of the cohort, men will value and continue to nurture those non-romantic relationships that can be essential, because if you don't, what happens is that the men in the cohort, they put all of their emotional eggs in the basket of their partner, and that's a lot.
Mhm.
That's really daunting, that the partner has to be everything to them. Get some friends,
Yeah.
have play dates.
Yes. No, like to put all of your emotional needs on another person is actually insane. Like I could not imagine, like I have some of my girlfriends where like we go and we party together. And then I have my girlfriends where, like we get really deep together. And then I have my friends where like we just like to watch movies and like just, hang out. And I think it's so important to have those different kinds of emotional needs being fulfilled in different avenues.
Right,
And I couldn't imagine putting all of that on one person. Like,
right.
you need to build
That's
a
a
little
lot.
community around you. So,
and so And so singles have, in fact, done that. And there's another young man, Kim Kislev, who wrote a book called Happy Singlehood. And one of the
mhm,
arguments that he makes in his book is that people who are long term never married, once they age, they tend to have slightly better outcomes than people who are returning to singlehood because of widow, separation, or divorce, because they were able to build a network of friends. But
mhm,
because married folks were sold a bill of goods and thought that they would never be single again, they put all of their effort into their partner and didn't build a
yeah.
network. So when they return back to singlehood, they just don't know how to navigate it all that well.
Oh, yeah. I'm such a firm believer in with healthy relationships, your partner should never be your whole world ever.
No,
I feel
no,
like you need to have your girlfriends, you still need to go on your girls' trips, do your own thing, and then, live your own life. And then at the end of the day, you get to come back together personally.
right. Yes,
But, I'm not married, so I can't really speak to that. I'm single, so who knows?
right, right.
Um, but yeah, we talked about your book a little bit, but I really want to like go deeper in that. So, when you were deciding to write a new book, why did you choose this topic? What interested you in this, and how did you go about doing the research for the book?
Yeah, so this actually has been 7 years in the making. So as a sociologist, as a professor, I was trying to make the argument that there was this demographic, people that have never been married, don't have any children, and are solid members of the middle class, Black middle class in particular. So
Yeah.
I built a lot of statistical models to show that they do exist. So I appreciate that, and I use national data to show that this is a growing trend. This is a trend that's happening, and we have to start paying attention to this group. But after I was tenured, I thought that I really wanted to put metaphorical meat, on the numerical bones that I had developed over the first part of my academic career. So I really wanted to talk to people. It's one thing to say, here's the data that shows you this group is growing. Here's another data point to say, we've talked to these people and learned more about, we wanted to go deeper. We wanted to add some more
Hmm.
nuance, some more texture to who they are. And so this is the meat that I put on the bones. And so I really wanted to interview people and have them tell me about their experiences of being single and living alone in the Black middle class. And the reason why I really wanted to focus on the Black middle class is because these are the people who have, quote unquote, done everything right. They went to school, they got degrees, they have good jobs, they have nice houses, but they're still not married. And so I was like, people often want to make it an individual argument. And I, as a sociologist, have to say that structure plays into the conversation. And one of the things I say in the book explicitly is that we have to understand that structural forces constrain personal choices, especially for Black folks. So, what I mean by that is that if we think about systemic racism, if we think about gendered racism, that directly constrains personal choices. So, there's some people that are like, oh, woe is me, I can't get married, I can't find a mate. But that's not just an individual issue, it really is a structural issue. So, I'm not going to let people feel as if they're less than without including structure into the conversation because we're navigating social institutions on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I can't speak to being a single Black woman because I am not. Um, but I did want to talk about this just in general because I feel like you said, there is systemic racism. There is institutions that need to be broken down and things that need to change within our society. So, what if some of the data and the results from your studies shown you when it comes to single Black middle class women?
So some of them are a couple. There's a couple of different really interesting things, but one of the things. So I do interview both men and women in the book. So I'm going to answer this question in two ways. Talk about my sample, then talk about some interesting findings. So one of the things I grappled with was whether or not I just wanted to talk about Black women. And part of the reason why I grappled with that is because women dominate the category. There are just more single Black women than there are single Black men, especially if you're talking about professional or middle class. So I could have easily written a book on just Black women, but there are some Black men that are single too. So I did not want to exclude men from the conversation. So I
Yeah.
decided to include them in the conversation. I might write another book that just about just some girls,
Just
but
the
for right now,
women. Yes.
yeah, I'm like I threw the boys are okay, so we threw them in there. But I'm glad that I did. And one of the reasons why I'm really glad that I did is because I saw some subtle gender differences. So when we get to this whole notion about whether or not Black women in the book are single by choice or by force versus Black men, a lot of the people said that they were single. Some people said that they were single by choice, but then they talked about how circumstances brought them to this choice. So we have to understand it's really hard to disconnect choices from circumstances. But for those that really did want to be married, Black women were hopeful that they would get married, and Black men said, "Well, it's just a matter of time before I do get married." So it's really interesting the perspective. Women are hopeful, and men were just like, "It's a foregone conclusion that it will happen." Had
They're
I
just
not
entitled to it.
yeah, and but
As
but I think that's and I know, right? So I think one of the issues with men to say, well, it'll eventually happen, and I'm like, well, yeah, and that's fine if you want to believe that, but I was like, are you just taking anything then? I like, okay, well, I need to be married. I'm now 55 or whatever, so let me get married,
yeah.
and you're just picking whatever. That's troubling for all parties involved if that is in fact the case. Women are more hopeful, but I think that they're just not going to take anything if it's going to be a relationship, it's going to be the right relationship for them. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure if men had that same, I'm not sure if that men were making that same argument or not.
Yeah. I feel like I interview a lot of guys too, with this dating podcast. And a lot of women are like, why not me? And they're just waiting to get chosen. And a lot of the men are very like, "Oh, yeah, it'll happen when it happens." But with women, like, we're on a clock.
Right.
Our reproductive organs are like, you got X amount of time. And then, if you want kids and a family, that window is closing. So
Right.
there's like that time pressure on women that I feel like men just don't have because they don't
Right.
understand.
Right.
Um, so did you do like personal stories and stuff like that in the book? I know it's not out yet, but I haven't gotten to like read any snippets of it. So I'm like so curious about everything inside this book. I can't wait to read it.
I know. And it's so funny. I can't wait to read it too. I can't wait to hold the book in my hand. I'm not sure when this will air, but the book should be out by February 9th. By the time this air, the book may already
Okay.
be
Wait,
out.
let me get my calendar out because I think it should be, let's see. So this episode will come out on the 13th. Yeah. So the book will have just
Oh
come
my
out.
gosh. Okay, so the book is just gonna come out. Please
So
go
the
to
book is out,
Amazon.
everyone.
Please go to Amazon. Please go to Cambridge University Press. Please go to my website. Please buy the book and let me know what you think about it.
Yeah.
It's
Go get
really
it.
funny. It's really funny because I'm so excited about the book. It took 7 years. I was excited to get it done. But then I also, towards the very end, I just kind of had like a panic attack or anxiety attack. I was like, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to put my intimate thoughts out there because people are just not going to
Hmm.
agree with me. But I was like, if nothing else, this book is definitely going to spark a conversation. And so I'm
Yeah.
here. I am here for the conversation. So what we did was we interviewed, we recruited, and we landed on 75 people, and we interviewed 62. We had to discount about 13 people. And part of the reason we had to discount them is because we really wanted people who had never been married. Because we wanted to talk to people, interview people who hadn't been exposed to the stimuli, that being marriage. Because we
Yeah.
wanted to ask questions about how they navigate their lifestyle. One of the things that's really important to me as a sociologist and a demographer is the huge wealth disparity that exists in America, the racial wealth disparity. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to figure out like how singles, especially Black singles, were going to buy homes and how they were going to transfer assets to the next generation if they didn't have a partner or children. So we really wanted people that were never married. But it's so funny because we had people that had been married. They're like, but my husband doesn't exist to me. That man is dead to me. So you can interview me. I was like, well, no, well, okay, that's not exactly how
The
that
point.
works. But then you had some people said, my children are 18. I'm not going to give them a dime. They're not going to get nothing from me. So you can interview me as well. And I was like, well, no, that's not how it works, because what that tells me is that you have the option to decide your assets are not going to go to them. I want people who have assets, and then they have to decide where they're going to send their assets because they don't have children, whether or not they're going to cut them off or not. So I started out with 75 and had to settle on 62. And women do dominate the category. I think I have 40 that are women and 22 that are men. But it's women just absolutely dominate the category. But I still think it's important to have men in the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, with the women and talking about it, you said that some people had chosen to be single and some had been chosen because of circumstance. So with the women that chose to be single, tell me a little bit about that choice as to why and what led them to that wasn't, because of circumstance. I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, so like I said, it was kind of hard because they're like, yeah, I'm happily single. I'm choosing to be single. But then they'll go on to say something like, I had some bad experiences and I decided this is where I want to be. I'm like, okay, so you're choosing to be single now, but circumstances in some kind of way led you to that. So for the most part, even those that chose, there were some that are single at heart. Some of the scholarship around singlehood is talking about single at heart. They never meant to be married. They never meant to be partnered. They never wanted to be mothers or they never wanted to be fathers. So there were a few that were there, but there were a lot that were like, I'm single by choice right now. And circumstances in some ways inform that decision to be single by choice right now. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, they're still living their lives. So I can't pinpoint like one thing to say. The people that were single by choice, here are the reasons why they were, because circumstances did feed into them one way or another.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm choosing to be single, but if a man asked me out tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, let's go on a date. It's like,
Right. And so it's so funny you say that because like I've done a couple of podcasts and a couple of talks about the book, and it's I'm getting momentum. I'm really excited about it. And people often ask me, "Are you single and are you looking?" And I'm like, if you read the book, you wouldn't be asking me that question. However, I was like, yeah, I'm always open if it makes sense. I tell anybody it has to make sense. Nobody's coming up in here disrupting my peace.
yes.
If you're not protecting and preserving my peace, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. And
No, I literally just made a TikTok a second ago. I say this in almost every episode. I'm like, "Oh, I just made a TikTok," but like I did. I just made a TikTok like about like how I have protected my peace too much to the point where I'm like, I'm kind of bored. Like I need some drama. Should I just like spice it up a little bit and just
oh
get
no.
in some
Mm-mm.
drama?
That's so funny. One of my dearest girlfriends like, you a drama queen. You just like to find drama. Let me tell you, I am not trying to. I love my peace. I am protecting and preserving my peace. If you want to find some drama, let's go out to the golf course and figure out how to hit your ball straight and far. But
Yeah. No, like I'm like I love drama. I love other people's drama, not my own.
yeah, no, I'm trying to live drama free. I am trying to live drama free. But it's so funny because I tell people, it's like I'm not a dating expert and I really don't talk about dating or anything like that. Can't help you. That's
Yeah.
not the research that I
I mean,
do. But what I
singleness goes with dating.
right. But I do think with that being said, I was like, if you're like, I'm not giving advice on dating, I'm not giving dating advice, but if I were, but I'm not, but if I were,
But
I
if
would
you
say,
were.
oh my God, but if I was, I would say, hey, so why don't you tell people that you're really happy with your singlehood? As soon as you say that, they come out of the woodwork looking for you, trying to go on dates, trying to date you. I was like, it is like it just seems to happen because I tell people I'm very confident in my singleness right now. And I think what happens is I become more attractive and I become competitive. It becomes a competition. And
Hmm.
then the men are really trying. So tell them you're happy in your singlehood. Guarantee you'll get a couple dates. Guarantee.
I'll start making TikToks about it, being like, "Oh my god, I love my life single," which I do. I have
They
the best
and they
friends.
don't
I've created a beautiful community of people. I have great relationships with my family. So like I am confident in that, but I'm like lately I've just been craving intimacy. And I've been craving like partnership and like someone to do things with. And like I do a lot of things with my girlfriends and but at the end of the day there still is a void in me that is missing. And I have been struggling to learn how to grapple with that. So I guess my question to you is how do you accept singleness and learn how to be happy in your times of singleness?
right. So I'm gonna answer that in kind of 3 ways. One of the things that was fascinating about and I don't know if that fascinating is the right word I want to use, but one thing that came out with the book and the interviews that I did is that sex only came up twice. Singles really didn't talk about sex. And I thought that was kind
Mhm.
of interesting. But I think and I'm not I have to be careful the way in which I say this because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to suggest that your feelings aren't real. But I
Yeah.
feel sometimes like, especially because the fourth Valentine's Day is coming, and I had to take my father to a doctor's appointment, and all the Valentine's things. I was like, "We're in January. Hello, can we at least get out of the month of January before we start talking about
Yeah.
the red flowers
We
and
have
stuff?"
another day.
Give me my one last day in
Give
January.
me the one day. It for me, Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve, when all the couples are kissing, and nothing makes you feel more single than those two moments.
Right, 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 right. See, I think like in the book even talks about this. I do think that we're kind of brainwashed to think that we have to be partnered. Everything is going to just be better once we're partnered. And we think
Yeah.
about this day and we're like, no, and there are societal pressures that we're under and don't even realize it's like, oh, I miss somebody. I want to be with somebody. Do you really? Or is that what society is telling you that you should do on Valentine's Day and what you should do on New Year's Eve? And I also, and so in the book, one of the things that my respondents talked about is having like situational loneliness. Yes, they might be lonely around Valentine's Day. Thank God the book is coming out before Valentine's Day. I was like, read it,
Yes,
get yourself
get
a glass of
empowered.
wine. We're like, right. I don't drink, but get yourself your favorite drink, whatever it is, and just, sip on a little something and read the book. But they talked about situational loneliness where, sometimes they might feel a little lonely around Valentine's Day, maybe around New Year's Eve, but they're not going to get into a full relationship with a whole nother person, with a whole person simply because of this situational loneliness. And this is where friends really feed into that situational loneliness. And you can have these intimate, non romantic relationships that really fill that void sometimes when you do have that void. So I just want to be balanced. I want to be fair. There were some people in the cohort that said they were, in fact, situationally lonely, but it's not chronic. It's not long term. It's short. They have a network that helps them get through it and they move on. And so I think it's really important that we do that. For me, I absolutely adore and love my students. And once my student, always my student. I love my students, and most of them probably love me too. There's a select few that I'm sure call me a couple of choice words, but by and so I think I'm really blessed in what I decided to do and become a professor because I just have so many intimate relationships, non-romantic intimate relationships with my
Yeah.
students. And yeah, if I was an accountant, I'm not sure if I would, and I'm no disrespect to accountants, but I don't know if I would be as confident in my singleness. But
Yeah.
because I have
Well, also,
such
like, being an accountant doesn't fill you, you know? Being a teacher and teaching the next generation, that fills you up and brings you joy and happiness. So, of course, being an accountant, you probably might feel a little bit more lonely, but whenever
but
you're doing
no
something,
disrespect to any of you accountants out here. No
yeah,
disrespect to you. We're not throwing you under the bus. But I
it's
have more.
just
Yeah, you're
anyone
working with
who's not doing what
numbers.
they want to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so even if it's not your career, it's like, okay, you can have friends. There's mentorship that you can do outside of your career. There's other things that you can do. And I think unfortunately there's only one way that people think you have to adult, and that is to be partnered. And that's so short-sighted. And in some ways that's really, really dangerous because again, that means you'll take any kind of relationship just so you don't have to hold the title of single because it is stigmatizing, which is really interesting because one of the parts in the book, and I left it for the readers to figure out because I needed help. I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. We talked about being stigmatized as a single came up. And so we're like, okay, are you more stigmatized as a woman? Are you more stigmatized as a man, as a younger person, as an older person? And one of the things that was really fascinating to me as a sociologist is that some people talked about how younger folks are more stigmatized if they're single. And their reasoning was that, which seems kind of contrary to the way I was thinking, is that you have a bigger dating pool. So since you have a bigger dating pool, something must be wrong with you. As you age, your dating pool
Interesting.
shrinks. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think about that. And I was like, and then they said, well, sometimes women are more stigmatized, men are more stigmatized. And so I was like, I even said to the reader, I'm like, yeah, good luck trying to figure this out. But the reality is there's a stigma that goes with singlehood. I don't know if it
Yeah.
swings, the pendulum swings further to the right for women or to the left for men. I don't know, but there is a stigma. And that's
Yeah.
so unfortunate.
I didn't
Yeah.
even think about the dating pool thing. That's so true because you're young. Majority of people, like your dating pool right now is everyone. But
Right.
once you get older and, whether you're single by choice or single by circumstance, say you get a divorce or you're widowed or whatever, your dating pool is significantly reduced because a lot of people are in marriages or, they have kids. And I didn't even
Right.
think about that.
Right. I didn't even think about that. But then you have people that are returning back to singlehood because that marriage didn't work the first time out. So, that
True.
increases
Yeah.
your dating pool just a little bit, like, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. And I think about like, I'm fortunate enough to live in a city. I could not imagine living in the suburbs trying to date. It's got to be brutal out there. Like
Well,
I'm in a metropolitan city. I'm downtown. I'm going to bars and I'm meeting people out there, but like I couldn't imagine like being in a small town or being somewhere where, your dating pool is so limited.
right. And I actually talk about one of the chapters, I talk about like residential choices, like where singles choose to live. And we know that there's discrimination that exists in the dating market along race, but there's also discrimination
Yeah.
along your marital status as well. And so, or your household type. And so some singles want to live in the suburbs. They want to get the best bang for their buck. But sometimes neighbors are looking at them. I was questioning whether or not neighbors were looking at them sideways, like, okay, here's like the creepy single guy at the end of the block. And some of the cohort members talked about how like they have to make sure they speak to everybody so they don't think that they're the crazy dude at the end of the block. And sometimes the single person, they don't really want to engage with their neighbors too much. They just want to keep to themselves. And so they look like the antisocial single person.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. That's so
Yeah.
fascinating. I find
Yeah.
sociology so fascinating in general and just like the study of people. And I think that's why I, latched on to dating as a topic that I love to talk about because, it might not be, dating might be a little bit more psychology than sociology. I only took one sociology class and it was in high school. So my knowledge of it is very limited. But from what I understand, it's studying groups of people. And I
Yes.
don't know if it's like big groups of people. I don't know. But
Yes.
it's one thing I like find fascinating with dating is like the way that two people interact and what is going on socially and internally. And, I just find it all so fascinating.
Yes, it is completely and totally fascinating. And sociologists, for the most part, we really study like institutions and try
Hmm.
to understand institutions. So we think of a psychologist dealing with the individual, and sociologist deals more so with the institution. And that's why I, as a sociologist, am arguing that we can't have a conversation about dating without including institutions and structures into the conversations. And
Yeah.
it really is important because if you don't, we superimpose this idea that something's wrong with us, and it's not always just about us. It's about the idea that some things constrain our dating choices, and that's just the reality of it. And we need to
Yeah.
take that into consideration. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. I know, like with Nashville, the dating pool is interesting. I would say it's kind of skewed personally. I saw this girl talking about it. It hasn't been studied, and, I'm probably not going to study it, but it's a theory that I saw on TikTok. So take it with a grain of salt, but I thought it
Right.
was
Right.
pretty
Right. Right.
fascinating. Like a lot of people, Nashville is a pit stop. It's where young people come. It's like the New York of the South, where young people come for a few years, and they party, they have a good time, and then they go back to their hometowns where then they will settle down. And
Ah.
I thought it was kind of fascinating because I was like, wait, that's kind of right. Because a lot of the people I know are just here for a short period of time. I'm here because I work in the music industry and I work in entertainment, and this is just a good place to be for it. But
Hmm.
a lot of people aren't moving here with the intention of staying. So
Right.
why would you want to be good to another person or, get into something more long term if this is just a short term living?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe we have to have a conversation about like long distance dating. Like, I don't really study dating like that, but I'm like, is long distance dating
Yeah.
possible? Is it viable? I was like, we have a Zoom and videos. So I think it
Yeah.
makes it
No,
easier, but
definitely. And uh Bumble just released their 2023 or 2022 like end of year recap. But one thing that they saw as a trend is long distance is becoming more popular, which is fascinating to me because, I think the technology just makes it a lot easier.
right. Yeah. So I'm curious to know what the what the data would actually say on that. Like, that's fascinating.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that we haven't gotten to yet?
So one of the things that I argue in the book, and I'm really curious to know what people think about this once they buy the book and read the book. And I want to have a question about music. So one of the things I'm arguing is that when we think about family and when we define family, if we use the Census Bureau definition of a family, it is somebody that you're related to by blood, marriage, or adoption. So if you are single and living alone in the dating market, but not, partnered or married yet, you would not, by census definition, you would not be considered a family. You would be considered a household. And I, in the book, argue that why can't people who are single, not married, be considered a family of one? There are definitely advantages to being in a family versus being in a household. I'll give you three examples. One's benign and one is egregious. If I want to go and get a cellular plan, the family plan, I want to be able to get my family plan price, even though it's only one phone and it's just me. If I want to go on vacation, I don't want to pay more in a single occupancy versus a double occupancy room. I want the
Mhm.
family rate, which is the family rate across the board, whether I got 5 kids, five husbands, whatever it may be, I want the family rate. And then a really egregious example, and people on this line can probably attest to this, the tax structure. The tax structure advantages certain family types, and singles are paying out the wazoo for taxes. I want to be able to file my taxes as the Marsh family and get the Marsh family benefits and discounts and tax breaks. So I would argue that we really need to think about redefining a family, because when we do not, I think in some ways we're discriminating against single folks in plain sight, which gets back to an earlier argument that I made. If we think about how structural forces like racism and gendered racism constrain personal choices, and then on top of that, you're going to discriminate against me in the tax market, that's a problem. And we
Yeah.
just don't, yeah, we just don't talk about that enough. And I hope that the book allows us to have that conversation. Like, why can't we be considered a family of one? Or to the point that we've been making throughout the book, you date romantic partners and you also date non-romantic partners, your girlfriends and friends.
Yeah.
Um, and so why can't we make a family? Why can't my girlfriend and I go, my non-romantic girlfriend, why can't we go down and like do some estate planning together as a family? I want the solid family estate planning, please. Thank you. Please and thank you.
Yeah. I know. It'd be so
Mhm.
fun to like build a little community with your girlfriends and just y'all live there. I mean,
Right.
I kind of do that right now. I live with my four best friends. There's five of us in
Right.
a house. It's great. We get
Right.
along so well. We
Mhm.
rarely have fights and we get to hang out every single night. Like
Right.
it's the
Right.
best of both worlds.
Right. But you know what's funny though? And that's wonderful. That's beautiful. If you were to get into some kind of fight or disagreement, we've got like these couples therapy and stuff like that, but we don't even prioritize or normalize friends going to therapy. Because sometimes you have breakups with your friends, but maybe we can go to
Oh yeah.
therapy and work through this. We have therapy to hold your couple, to hold your relationship together, but we don't have therapy to hold your friendships together. Again, short-sighted. And we need to put more value in some of those non-romantic relationships.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
completely agree. I just had a huge friend falling out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it wasn't just, it was last year. But
I had one a couple of years ago that still breaks my heart. I'm like, I wonder if we could have gone to therapy and worked past it, but
yeah, no, I feel the same way. I was in business with the other girl and it was really traumatic and it was really hard and like we did
it
have a
is.
lot of conversations, but ultimately like we just couldn't make it work with our friendship and life goes on.
I life goes on.
Um One thing I like that you talk about a lot is like the intimacy and like female friendships. I don't know. I feel like that's something that now we're starting to see a little bit more in media. Especially when it comes to like single women. I feel like with female friendships, you see like I don't know, I'm thinking of Frozen. It's the first thing that comes to mind, but like at the end of the day, like what saved the sister was not the man, it was the other sister. It was friendship, it was love. And I think it's important that we start teaching that, to our kids and, to the next generations that romantic love is not end all be all. There's so many different forms of love that are just as valid.
Right, and that's why and when we do that and you know what happens a lot of times that we prioritize the romantic love. So to the cost and the benefit of our non-romantic relationships. Like, oh, I really want to come to your party, but I got a date with some dude. It's like, no, I'm not prioritizing some dude whose name I'm not going to remember by the end of the month over my girlfriend's party because she just got promoted at work or something like that. And I haven't always been years ago. I told some of my girlfriends, I was like, okay, I'm tired of hanging out with you. I'm gonna go get myself a husband. And I was engaged for about 38 minutes. Thank God we called that off. I dodged a bullet on that one.
38 minutes.
It was about 38 minutes, long, a very short story. And so I was like, I prioritize a romantic relationship to the cost of my friends. I'm like, and we know they're still there. The guy's been married like 3 times since we were engaged. And so we and see again, this is because we don't talk enough and value enough and put enough emphasis on the non-romantic relationships that we do have. And because Valentine's Day is coming, I think it's important. I admonish us and the listeners to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to celebrate all my friendships that I have right now. I don't have this romantic relationship, but it's about love and it's about different types of love. I'm going to, and most importantly, I'm going to embrace and celebrate the self care and the self love, and then my love with my other friends. But you can have a wonderful Valentine's Day because it's
Yeah.
not. It just we're too short sighted and we're so narrow minded. We think it only has to be romantic love, and that's not what the holiday really does represent, or that's not what it has to represent.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. Me and my roommates were talking last night. Two of them are in relationships. So we were like, screw y'all. Y'all go do your own thing. But the rest of us single girls, we're gonna invite all of our girlfriends over and we're gonna get steaks and I'm gonna make them. And one person's gonna do steaks, one's gonna do like asparagus, bread, mashed potatoes. Like we're gonna do a nice dinner. We're gonna get bottles of wine. And we were talking about it last night and we're all like, oh, it's going to be so fun. It's going to like, make the day just a little bit easier on us. Cause like, it can be hard for single people and you
Right.
see, like couples and like everything's romanticized and we're all going to do that together. And then we were talking about it and the two roommates that are in relationships are like, wait, I want to do that. Like, I don't want to go
No.
on. And we're like, mm-mm.
Very for,
Let me take back this day. Like this
right,
day is
right,
for me.
right. And so I have a single awareness party. I used to have one every year. And so it's like, we're going to celebrate ourselves. We're going to stand confidently in our singleness. And so do potlucks. And so I always like having like little themes. So one year I think it was the Boston Celtics. I like sports. And the Boston Celtics, I think, were playing and they were doing really well. And Kevin Garnett played for them. And I said, okay, let's bring something green. You have to bring something green. And so, because I also like salad and guacamole, so I was like, "Ooh, somebody's gonna bring some salad. Somebody's gonna bring some
Mhm.
guacamole."
Guac.
And then, which gets to this whole music thing and that you do. And then Biz Markie, who used to be a DJ and a rapper, he's like 80s
Mhm.
kind of DJ rapper.
Yeah.
So again, you're supposed to bring something. And it's like everybody just came to the party, just had a good time. Some people were single, some people weren't. So you had to bring something green. He decided he was going to bring Sprite soda in green cans. I was like, I don't think that's how that works. But I drank that Sprite, that green Sprite in the green can.
I mean, it
But
was
it's
in a
just
green can.
it
You
was
could have brought like
that,
food
that I
dye
don't
or
know.
something.
No, that's not. I don't think it. No, I don't think that quite works like that. I was like, this is not what you're. Where's your guacamole? But so we again, if you want to sit at home in the fetal position and cry yourself to sleep on Valentine's Day, do you, boo? I'm not mad at you. However, please understand that you're forsaking these wonderful relationships that are non-romantic that help hold you together and help sustain you in ways that you're not even aware of. So you can be in a fetal position if you want to, but you really are underestimating and ignoring and in some ways undervaluing the non-romantic relationships that you have.
Yeah. No, I completely
Yeah.
agree.
Okay. So like, do you happen to have like a favorite artist or a favorite song?
Oh man, I listen to a lot of different kind of music. Right now, I'm obsessed with SZA's new album. I cannot turn it off. The whole album is just
I don't know who that
incredible.
is. Okay.
She's like a R&B pop singer. She's so good. And then what else am I listening to right now? Been listening to like rock again, like some Foo
Mhm.
Fighters.
Okay.
And then I listen to a lot of like up and coming indie bands.
Okay.
particularly there's like a big like indie pop scene in Nashville, ironically. Like, I think people think of Nashville and they think country, which like I do like country music, but like that's not my top choice. But over in East Nashville, there's like a bunch of like indie pop. And so I like to listen to a lot of those bands that are up and coming out of here. So it's like the band Camino, The Wildlife, Nightly. There's a band I just listened to. Actually, I just had them on the podcast. They're called Neve. They're out of
Hmm.
Germany. But
Hmm.
same kind of sound. A
Okay.
lot of Beyonce.
Okay.
Like I said, my music taste is all over the place. If you
Okay.
were to hit shuffle on my Spotify account, you would be
You're
like,
like, what?
what? Yeah.
Okay. So do you happen to have like a and I'll tell you my music choice after this, but do you happen to have like an empowering song? Like, so we're thinking about Valentine's Day and we're thinking about people that might be a little bit upset that they might have a romantic partner. Do you, and I'll tell you mine, but do you happen to have like an empowering song when you listen to it, you're like, I am beautiful, I am fabulous, I am wonderful, there's nothing that's going to ruin my day? Do you have a
Yes, I
song that you can
do.
recommend? Do you have a wrong song you can recommend for me and even for the listeners on Valentine's Day so that we celebrate our self-love and self-worth on
Yes.
Valentine's Day? Okay, so what would yours be? And I'll tell you mine.
When
Okay,
you
like,
just said that, I just got so excited because this is my go-to song. Anytime I need to get like amped up for anything, this is my song. And it is Don't Hurt Yourself by Beyonce, but not on the Lemonade album. It is the Coachella live version. When I
okay.
tell you nothing will make you feel more empowered and angry and amped up, that's the song that she wrote where she was like, for the Lemonade album, when Jay-Z cheated on her, that was the
Uh-huh.
song where because the album goes through her range of emotions and processing, the affair. And this song is the stage when she is angry, she is vengeful, she is full of rage. And her performance at Coachella with this song is unlike anything I have ever seen. It is Beyonce is like my all-time favorite performer, but like this song specifically is like you can't even argue she's the best performer. I would go as far to say of all time, personally.
Okay.
I know Michael Jackson is up there, but
I'm not a Michael.
Beyonce.
I'm not a Michael Jackson fan. I went with Prince on the whole Prince side. I think
Yes.
Michael Jackson's performer, but Prince is truly an artist. But okay,
Yes.
so for me, okay, so I'm okay. So I came to these songs kind of late, but there's two songs that I really kind of like.
Yeah.
And one, and I'll tell you my all-time favorite artist and why I think I just love her. Lizzo, good as hell. I do my hair toss. That's the name. Listen, if you are feeling kind of blue on Valentine's Day, listen to Lizzo, and you ain't gonna worry about none of them dudes that are women that you ain't really feeling right now.
Yes.
Listen to that song. That song is so, I love that song.
So good.
It's so encouraging. Now, mind you, I just heard it like last year or so. So I don't. I'm like, I was telling my students, I was like, I went to class with, they're like, oh my gosh, I want you to hear this great song, like Dr. Marsh. You know, it's like 5 years old. I'm like, okay, well, it's new to me. The other one that I
No,
like
it's a good
also,
one though.
yes.
I
So like
love Lizzo.
right now with with
Yes.
all that's going on with the book and stuff like that, that's one that I listen to. And I mean, you know, it's just fantastic. I also like Demi Lovato, Sorry Not Sorry. Oh,
Yes.
girl,
Good one.
girl,
Good one.
girl, girl.
Or Confident too by Demi Lovato. That's a
Yeah,
good one too.
yeah. And then I'm actually going to see Gregory Porter. He's an R&B artist. I'm going
Mhm.
to see him on Valentine's Day. So he does a lot of like ballads and stuff like that. But I'm going to take it myself on Valentine's Day. I'm sitting in the third row, first seat, going to enjoy myself and celebrate me on Valentine's Day with all the
Yes,
couples and have
as you
no problems
should.
going. Stand in my confidence, stand flat footed, uncompromised in my singleness.
Yes.
But my all time favorite artist of all time, hands down, is Aretha Franklin, the Queen of
Mm.
Soul.
Yep.
Honey, 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 you turn any song of hers up loud and it'll make you feel better. Because I mean,
Yeah.
her voice is so soulful,
Yes.
and
She's
people.
so incredible.
And so one song that I really like by her, and which people may not know this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. She actually recorded "Let It Be" by the Beatles before the Beatles actually released it. In fact, the rumor has it that they wrote it for Aretha Franklin. If you're having some trouble getting through Valentine's Day, listen to "Let It Be" Aretha Franklin version. And you want to have a really great academic exercise,
Mhm.
listen to Aretha Franklin versus the Beatles. The soulfulness is so clear when you juxtapose those two. But if you're having a
Absolutely. I could totally see it probably was written originally with her in mind. That's
yeah,
not uncommon in this industry. Most of the
right,
artists like, you know, I don't know if you know much about the music industry, but publishing in the music industry, you hire songwriters, songwriters write you songs. As the publisher, then you pitch them to the artist and then you pitch them to radio. So,
Yeah.
yes, some artists write their own songs, most of them don't. And a lot of
Right.
times, songs are written with people in mind of who could we get to sing this.
Yes. So I think and I really appreciate it because the Beatles give you something. They do in their version
Yeah.
of it. But Aretha Franklin gives you something else that touches the essence of your soul. So for all of those that are on this call, email me, text me, call me, hit me up on Facebook, social media. Let me know what you think about the Aretha Franklin's version of Let It Be. I
Yeah.
think it's phenomenal. It is
I'm
phenomenal.
gonna check it out. I've never heard that version
Oh,
before.
okay. Well,
But
like
I know I fully
email
believe
me
you.
and let
I'm
me know
a
what you.
huge
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin fan.
Yes, it's hard to find, but you'll find it. I think she recorded it in 71. Please don't quote me on the date, but please email
Yeah.
me. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about it. Yes.
Oh my
But for the
goodness.
listeners, please do let me know what you think about it. I think it's a fascinating song. And if you are, and again, I'm not saying that everything's going to be easy. It's always going to be, if you're not partnered, it's always going to be rosy. It's going to be a good day. But if you have some kind of like slightly dark and not so happy days, music really does get me where I want to go. And Aretha Franklin will always soar me to new heights.
Yeah. I know. And so many people too. Like, think about all the people that you know that are in unhappy relationships.
Listen, listen. I have somebody, a friend of mine who's been married for 20 years, and two of those are good. I was like, but you stay together for 18 more? And we banterize like, oh, been together for 20 years. No, how many of those were good? How many of those did you like
Yeah.
your partner?
Time does
Right.
not mean success.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. But I can stand very confident, flat-footed in my singleness and very happy with where I am. And I'm
Yeah.
protecting and preserving my peace. Yes.
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 And that is what this year is about, everyone. It is about protecting our peace. I always say that
Yes.
too with like dating. I'm like, if someone's coming into my life, like they really have to bring a lot of value because I'm not
Right.
adding anything. Like I'm not bringing anything into my life that is subtracting.
No, absolutely not. No, that's not even open for discussion.
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm, I'm not doing that. No. Oh, no, 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 no. Well, it has been truly a pleasure. If I can just let people know where they can catch me if they want to,
Yeah.
you can
That's
find me.
what I was headed next. I was gonna say,
Okay.
plug yourself, tell all the
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Your book will be
Okay.
out
So
by now.
yes,
So
please go pick up the book. Oh, I have to say this if you can give me 2 more minutes. So the book is written by Cambridge University Press, which is one of the top academic presses in the world. So but I did try to write it to a commercial audience, not an
okay.
academic audience. But with that being said, I need you to bear with me. The introduction and chapter 1 are kind of theoretical and they're kind of dense and they're like kind of hard to get through. It's not a quick, easy read. If that's not your thing, once you get to chapter 2, that's where you'll really start to hear the respondents come to life and really talk about the book. So just hang on till you talk about their experiences. So just hang on till you get to chapter 2. In the spirit of complete and total transparency, when I was copy editing the first chapter and the introduction, it took me an entire day to get through that because it was dense. The next day, I got through chapters 2 through 10. So 2 through 10 are really, there's more storytelling and you'll gain a lot out of it. So please just hold on to chapter 2. Hold if you're not a theoretical type person, you don't like the dense
Yes.
kind of reading. The other thing I want to say too is that one of the things my editor said is like, well, Dr. Marsh, you seem to talk and write in a stream of consciousness. If you find yourself going off on a tangent, put things in a footnote, but keep them to a minimum. I said, okay, Ken, thank you. I have 120 footnotes.
Me, I go off on tangents all the time.
All the time. Yeah. So you want to keep a coherent story throughout the book. So one of the things that I did, and it was kind of in some ways dangerous to do this, I kept the footnotes at the bottom of the page. So the book feels even more academic. But the reason why I did that is because I know that I'm a lazy reader. And if you want me to flip to the back of the page, back of the book to read the footnotes, I'm not going to do it. So I put them at the bottom of the page. So please read the footnotes. It may feel academic, but it's really not. And the footnotes is where all the really good, juicy stuff is. Please read the footnotes. So if you want to find me, you can find me on my website. My website is Dr. Kris Marsh. That's DrKrisMarsh, not like the month, like marshmallow.com. And on social media, it's the same handle, Dr. Kris Marsh, KrisMarsh. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I have not ventured over to TikTok yet, but who knows? And then you can also email me at my University of Maryland account. That's kmarsh, the number 1 at umd.edu. Please let me know how you're going to spend your Valentine's Day. And please let me know if you get a chance to listen to Let It Be.
Yes.
Aretha Franklin version. Aretha Franklin
Yeah.
and Beatles version.
Oh my goodness.
Riley, it has
Well,
been it's truly been a pleasure to hang out with you, Riley. I'm so happy that you asked me to come on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and you're just a breath of fresh
yes.
air. So
Oh my
thank you.
goodness. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dr. Kris Marsh, for coming on and sharing your knowledge. Everyone go get her book. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I haven't gotten to read it yet because it's not out. But I will be reading it the second that it
Yes.
hits the stores. Thank you so much
Okay.
for coming on and being vulnerable and sharing your story and sharing your knowledge and your studies and your findings and all the things. As always, you know where you can find me, Riley Nelson 18 on Instagram, Riley Nelson 13 on TikTok. One day we'll have them just Riley Nelson. And then also you can find the podcast on Instagram at This Hits Different Podcast, and check out my website, www.thishitsdifferent.com. Bye, guys. Today's episode was edited and produced by Aiden McKernan. You can find him on Instagram at Aiden C. McKernan. He will also be linked below in the show notes. The This Hits Different theme song was produced by Zach Jordan. You can find him on Instagram at zach.jrdn. He will also be linked below in the show notes. Today's episode was written and hosted by me, Riley Nelson, and you can find me on Instagram at Riley Nelson 18. I know I just said that 10 minutes ago, but here we are. Thank you guys so much for listening.